do like a little highlight reel.
All right, everyone, welcome. Thank you for being here. First, let me introduce the band again, like, you know, I'm going to have to write a paper on this. First off, on guitar, we have Mr. Rafael Rosa. You guys doing? You can clap. Woo! Thank you. You didn't play yet, that's fine.
Well, maybe.
And on organ, we have the assistant director of our jazz band here on campus, as well as, what are you teaching next semester?
Pop music in the non-Western world.
Professor DeFeo, also a St. John's alum. All right, so we're going to play like 5 or 6 songs for you today. Starting with the first tune is going to be called Backtrack by, I feel, one of the great organ players. Again, instruments. We have DeFeo on the Hammond B3 organ. Rafael Rosa on electric guitar, obviously, and me on this drum set. Dr. Lonnie Smith is, to me, one of my personal favorite organ players, and this is a great tune of his called Backtrack. And as we'll see as the course goes on too, in the 60s, organ trio becomes a very popular ensemble, and I think we start to see a transition too, where it moves away from not just always the swing rhythm, and a lot of backbeat music kind of moves into the genre as well. So again, this is Backtrack by Dr. Lonnie Smith. One, two, right, so again, that was Backtrack by Dr. Lonnie Smith. Now to change gears a little bit. And I wanted to speak about two that, again, I sent an email out with some of the tunes we were playing beforehand, but this tune I heard last night just shuffling through Apple Music, and I was like, oh, I want to play this tomorrow. So, as I mentioned, the caliber of musicianship in the realm of like jazz music, I feel, is probably at the highest. Like I mentioned, like I was told by some great jazz musicians, like you need to be a great musician before you can even consider to being a mediocre jazz musician. And I think, again, to the testament of these gentlemen and their musicianship, I wrote out a chart this morning and said, let's play it today. So I came here, I gave it to them right there. What we're playing, again, is a 12-bar blues, which, again, I stress the importance of this form and this music and its influence on not only just jazz music, but pretty much every aspect of American music. And again, there's a 12-bar blues. It's written by a drummer called Tain Watts, and this melody, again, is called Blutain. And then what they're going to be soloing over is just a F blues chord progression.
Try it.
One, two, one, two, three. All right, so that's the beauty of the 12-bar blues, that we could just, again, have this very simple form, but as you see, each solo is going to take it in many different directions. what happened at the end there when we were going back and forth with the drum solo. So that was called trading, which I mentioned kind of came to prominence in the 40s during the bebop era. Definitely a pinnacle, I would say, during the hard bop of the 1950s and everything too. So then what we're doing is we're trading, what we did is we traded entire forms. So 12 bars each I would solo, then 12 bars they would solo, back and forth. One thing to keep in mind, the way we ended that tune, which I stress the importance of, if you remember a tune we listened to in class, Take the A Train, which is, that's the famous ending. And I would say, again, Duke Ellington has had a litany of impacts on this music, but I think that's one of his most famous signatures, and something, I mean, how many times a gig do we use that to end a song?
Probably too many.
All right, so now to change gears a little bit.
That's why I messed it up on purpose, actually.
You messed it up on purpose?
Yeah. I did like some, I don't even remember. I played something else.
You made it better.
So I want to hear in everybody's paper that you messed up the Duke Ellington ending.
No, you know, I sometimes it's, there's a very, if you guys don't know, there's a very famous Duke Ellington video from the 70s on YouTube, if you find it. And it's him on a Paris broadcast.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen this video? I've sent it to you probably.
Yeah.
And he talks a lot of very deep things about jazz music and black music, which I hold highly dear. And specifically, he talks about the freedom that this music actually gives you when you're learning other kinds of music, especially popular music, you know, hip hop, whatever, anything that's on the radio, pop, top 40, etc. Like this music kind of makes that seeing and hearing that music a lot easier. So it's not necessarily sometimes about telling, at least in my opinion, telling the younger generation to become jazz musicians, more like music is meant to be studied. You know, now everybody's just streaming it. And music is meant to like sit down and actually, you know, sit down and listen, you know, like get away from your phones and really open up your ears, your mind, your heart, your spirit, and to get the feeling of the music right. Because that's what you're hearing up here. You're hearing us play for years now and not having played for a couple months, and it doesn't really matter. It's like any other friendship, right? You see a great friend and you haven't seen them for a year, and then you see them and it's like you kick back where it left off, right? Because there's chemistry, right? What you're also hearing is a lot of chemistry. The three of us have developed some chemistry, and that's really what's beautiful about this music that Professor Borg is showing you, that the music actually allows you to be free, right? It allows you to change it up, to mess it up if you want to, and see if anybody's paying attention, you know? Quite frankly, if I did mess it up or not, you know? And that's, you know, the other thing that this music also teaches you is to be present. It's to be here. You know, there's no better place to be than here and now. You know, so, yeah.
And always be listening.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's what's cool about this band and the chemistry we have developed, right? If you notice, we're not really stepping on each other's toes at all, really. I'm dying to hear that recording, because, you know, that's what's beautiful about recording too, right? Recording is like, you know, you're taking a picture of how it sounded that day, right? You never think about Michael Jackson, right? But in this way, probably, but I do. It's like, if you want to listen to Michael Jackson at 7 years old sing, you can, right? That's what's beautiful about recording. Recording is like a picture in time, right? And then, you know, we've been recording ourselves for quite a number of years now, and hearing us get better, right? That's kind of the point of music and the point of humanity. And what I was just in Will Lane Studios arguing these points, right, about AI music and where we're at with all the prompting and all that stuff. It's like, nothing is gonna substitute being in the room with actual waveforms that are being made by inanimate objects. If I give any of you this guitar or that organ or that drum kit, you're not gonna make it sound the same, because you're you and I'm me and they are them, right? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like that's what's beautiful about music. Music is this very human thing that we all possess. We all sing, right? Everybody's mother sings poorly, but they sing, you know? You know, like we all have song inside of us, inside of our culture. Yo soy de Puerto Rico. So, I mean, we're all over the world now. You see what I'm saying? And that's what's beautiful about this music too, that all those musicians from Puerto Rico that are all over the world, they studied this music too. That music is not in the Super Bowl by accident. It's not like, oh yeah, Bad Bunny's popular. It's like, nah man, these guys are like real musicians. Have you heard that record? It's like very, do you know what bomba is? Plena? Mozambique? Right? Those are Puerto Rican rhythms from the Caribbean, right? American rhythms, actually. Same as this. Rhythms that make you free in understanding the stuff that you're being fed. And that's what's cool about this music, quite frankly. I like that this tune, Jeff Tain, what's the name of this record again?
Citizen Tain.
Citizen Tain?
See? More disrespect towards drummers. Don't want to listen to a record. Drummer's the band leader.
No, Jeff Tain once plays in the city a lot. So if you ever see his name on a bill, go watch him play. He's one of the best drummers you could ever hear, see, play live. Like he is. You can't substitute that on a pair of headphones.
No.
Or on a screen, no matter what the size,
He's one of the pinnacle artists, I would say, of the 1980s. I know I mentioned that. I feel like the 80s is a bit of a lull in the jazz world.
Oh yeah.
But he was someone, I think, that pushed and did something new from a rhythmic standpoint.
Absolutely. No, I mean, that's what's beautiful about studying music too, and about checking music out in the way that you guys are checking it out, right? You check out the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, etc. You're gonna be digging for the rest of your life. There's so much music made. I just came from like at least 7 record stores in Madrid full of artists that I've never heard of before. Plus other artists. I'll show you guys a picture if you want to see it. I found this single of Stevie Wonder, Don't You Worry About a Thing, but like the Spanish version as well, so No Te Preocupes. And it was $7, so I bought it because I'm gonna frame it, because it's kind of cool that even, a guy like Stevie Wonder, who we idolize in America, who has affected the jazz world, who brought over some of this jazz freedom that I'm talking about, right? And he popularized it, right? He made songs out of it, right? Sir Duke, Superstitious, As, all these great songs in the key of life. Listen to those records. Those records are really important. That even they were thinking in a business sense as well, right? How do they target the Spanish audience, bigger audiences? How do they, last forever? Because that's what's cool about music.
Now here's a song, the next song we're going to play, which is going to be a little bit of a change in direction, is a song that I think we all saw growing up and never maybe thought that it would last forever and maybe make the impact that it did. Let's see, who here has heard of the band Nirvana before?
There you go. Now
Not just from people's t-shirts either. Yes? And I'm sure, I always question people when I see this generation with like these rock t-shirts, like, have you listened to a record? Because I know the logo's cool, but I'm sure you all probably, if you do know the band, you probably know this song. It's called Smells Like Teen Spirit, which is probably their most famous song, I guess, because it was their first hit. But we're going to, again, utilize this song and play it almost as like a jazz ballad to start, and then let it grow and see where it goes from there. And I think this, to me, oh, sorry.
I got a cool stat about it, actually. When it hit the radio, like, Smells Like Teen Spirit is an important song, because in 1991, do you guys know the #1 song on the radio? Black or White by Michael Jackson. So it knocked off
The King of Pop.
the King of Pop from the Billboard charts. And all of a sudden, this song was being played everywhere. And they were in Saturday Night Live, like they became a household name and knocked out the biggest artist at the time, right? And still one of the biggest artists ever, right? So it's kind of...
And I think too, I mentioned before in class, like, I know radio doesn't exist anymore, but like back in the 90s during that period.
78% of listeners listen to the radio. It's actually still the biggest medium. That is a farce. I found this out this weekend, man.
Really?
I have new statistics.
Does anybody here listen to like radio?
No, because not their generation, but everybody who rides a car listens to the radio. And actually, radio is a free medium. We're being sold that the Spotify's and Apple Music's and Tidals are the only options when they're charging us, right? As opposed to, make a record, feed it to a radio station, which there's plenty in New York State, New York City, like they're a bunch, and then you figure that loophole out, and you're gonna do better monetarily for yourself. Let's just put it that way. Deeper conversation.
But yes, I think the interesting thing about the 90s, like a song like this that now you would only hear on like probably what, an alternative rock or now on a classic rock station.
You have to find this song.
But then, when this song first came out, like you heard it on the rock station, but you heard it on Z100, which was like the pop station or whatever pop radio station.
Yeah, this was pop radio.
Yeah, which was something that I think is very foreign to imagine nowadays.
Taylor Swift, Beyonce.
Exactly. This, like you would hear
Bad Bunny, Kendrick Lamar, right?
Nirvana. It's like much different.
It's a different time.
Space we're in. But all right, let's hear this.
Let's try it.
1, 2, 3, 4. said improvised music. And I know one or two of you might have been here before when, again, today's the first day we ever played that. It was another thing. I was listening at home, and I feel like a lot of these tunes from the 90s, that they have like great memorable melodies. That's always a great vehicle for improvisation. And again, melodies that we're familiar with, and I think the audience will recognize as well. Kind of the same way that bebop musicians started playing, hey, let's play the Days of Wines and Roses, because everybody knows this melody, and then take a solo over it, and we'll drag our audience in. So again, we ran through it a little bit, maybe around like 10:30, but the beauty of it is, when we just played it now, it was nothing like when we just first played it at 10:30. And that's, to me, why I think playing improvised music, like I said, there could be one person in the room, and we could still have a blast. Whereas I feel the difference is like when playing popular music, you know, an audience I feel has a greater effect sometimes when you're playing popular music as opposed to, again, popular, I mean like music that maybe isn't improvised. And I feel the audience definitely, the energy exchange is definitely more important. I think it's equally as important here where I would say when our creation is appreciated, but you know, if there was nobody here, I'm sure we could still have a blast.
We call it rehearsal a little bit. We have a blast.
All right. Next tune. Let's see. How much time we got left?
15?
Oh, okay. Two more. So I'll let them choose. What would you want to play? Green Chimneys or yes or no?
Either or. I like them both.
I do too.
All right. You guys want to choose?
What sounds more interesting?
Green Chimneys. Who wants to hear that?
I want to win.
Yes or no?
Some people abstain from the vote.
Yes.
Have we learned nothing?
Probably not.
All right. So I guess Green Chimneys.
All right.
Nobody likes Wayne Shorter.
I like it.
All right, and now this tune, I think, what I'll do from a drum position in the beginning will historically to connect to what we saw in New Orleans. This tune, I feel, lends itself perfectly to a second line rhythm, which again, as we trace back, you'll hear kind of what the which is the clave. But again, when we look at it again, that's from if you had an Afro-Cuban thing, you could also. But again, if we're doing a second line thing, it kind of has that sort of semi-quasi in the cracks New Orleans kind of swing feel. But again, as we looked at throughout the course, that rhythm really traces all the way back to West African Nigerian music. But again, this is Green Chimneys by Thelonious Monk. What I feel.
We talk about that West African music more in my class, so little shameless plug.
Again, Thelonious Monk, who I feel for myself, some of his songs are always, I think, my favorite to play. He's a genius composer, and again, I would say, especially what he does rhythmically too. He was a genius that was far ahead of his time. Like as we saw, you know, his career. He first started recording in the 40s, but it wasn't until, you know, almost a decade later that I think the world really caught up with and understanding his music. Here's Green Chimneys. Again, that was Green Chimneys by Thelonious Monk. We have one more tune, which again is going to be a tune that was very popular, kind of 2 times, I would say, in the history of American pop music. First in 1975, written by a great, now I don't want to pigeonhole her with a genre, but I feel if anybody's ever heard of Roberta Flack, I mean, some people thought she was a jazz singer, some people said she was an R&B singer. I think more than anything, she was just a great singer, musician. So again, this tune was, she had a lot of pairings too in the mid-70s with like another great vocalist and singer, Donny Hathaway. But she first made this song popular, again, in the mid-70s, and then I know it was also covered again, probably in the later 70s by Bob James, a very famous keyboard player, who's also probably one of the most sampled keyboard players in the realm of hip-hop music too, as well. And then I would say this song was made popular again, really, really important for our generation, in the early 2000s by a great R&B singer named D'Angelo, who unfortunately passed away just, last year. And D'Angelo, specifically, his cover of this song, Feel Like Making Love, and that record, Voodoo, is a very, very, probably I feel one of the most important records of the last 25 years, due to the fact that I would say, you know, as we see when we get into Miles in the 60s, how what he did in the 60s changed the way everybody played music. This D'Angelo record, Voodoo, changed the way our generation, and I would say pretty much even generations before and all future generations, changed the way we play music, no matter what. It's a lot of rhythmic inventions. I think D'Angelo was the first to maybe conceptualize playing like a machine, specifically due to the influence, I would say, of like, you know, beats by Jay Dilla, Pete Rock, and he wanted the musicians to sound like that machine. Kind of like when we listened last class to the sampling of the Ahmad Jamal tune for The World Is Yours by Nas, and even the Stakes Is High by De La Soul, how I was pointing out how like some of the drum patterns, if we put it on a grid, it's not perfect, but it feels amazing. And D'Angelo challenged the musicians he was recording with, specifically Questlove on drums, and probably I think one of the greatest living bass players, Pino Palladino, challenged them to play like these machines and be a little bit off kilter and not perfectly on the grid, but it created this amazing feeling. And I think their ability to be humans and play like that is what completely changed our generation and future generations and how they play music. The one downside, I would say, unfortunately, I think we've been inundated and it's kind of got a little played out with certain clicks, but when it's utilized tastefully, I think it's an amazing contribution. But this tune played a lot by organ trios, so we're going to do our kind of rendition of it. And again, it's originally by Roberta Flack, and it's called Feel Like Making Love.
Actually, the guy who wrote it, Eugene McDaniels, is a really, really cool singer-songwriter type of he's since passed away, but he did a solo record that if you're into like kind of proto-hip-hop, a lot of like jazz poetry stuff, it's called Headless Heroes of the Apocalypse. I know it sounds like really gnarly, but there's like this song on their Supermarket Blues, and it's like really nutty and kind of trippy and funky. It's worth mentioning. But he wrote this. So.
One, two, three.